but that athletic director is very much, seen as the CEO.
When you think about some of the things that are now happening across the college landscape, whether that's NIL, the transfer portal, all this new money that's coming to the world of collegiate sports, how does the executive recruiting world play in all of that?
So it's interesting because it's changing quite a bit, Wayne. I mean, our firm is not only involved on the search side, but Elevate is the first firm to launch an investment vehicle that's focusing on, in partnership with some, limited partner capital sources, Velocity Capital, one of our private equity sponsors. We're investing across the college sports landscape. And, the search side of things involves everything from, sort of athletic director roles up and down the hierarchy, coaching roles across all sports, not just the major sports, but the, quote unquote Olympic sports that, are still very important to college and university identities. And so, those searches are among the most interesting because of the dynamic you just described and in how quickly and fundamentally college sports is changing.
So what are the differences today as compared to, what would a, maybe what a candidate would have looked like, and now the types of people that you're looking at, and maybe are you looking in different pools to find these people now than where you used to look in the past?
Yep. All of the above, Wayne. It's a great question because I'll just give you one example. So we recently completed the athletic director search at Stanford University, and that one was incredibly unique because of the unique aspects of Stanford itself. It has, top flight athletic programs, but, is also one of the elite academic institutions in the country. And so having an athletic director that can maintain the balance between all of those competing interests and considerations that can be in tension with one another was a challenge. And how we went about that search is indicative of how we work overall as an agency. I mean, we spent a ton of time soliciting input from various stakeholders across the universities, sort of, you know, cohort of people from, board members to alumni to current students to athletes, both present and former, and basically took all of that input in before we even began the search process. And, as a result of that input, but also those more macro dynamics we're talking about that are happening in college sports right now, we looked across all sorts of pools of potential candidates from traditional athletic director paths, which are 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, were the traditional path that you would see, the pedigree of candidate, and they would be exclusively who you would look for this role. But we ended up recruiting, and Stanford ended up hiring, John Donahoe, and he's just a perfect example. Never before have we seen someone who was the CEO of Nike, the CEO of eBay, a partner at Bain and Company, one of the premier management consulting firms in the world, before he went on to take on a college athletic director role. And, it was just driven by the revolutionary changes that are happening in college sports, as well as Stanford's unique characteristics in, as an institution of higher education.
And so, I mean, I think that's so interesting. And again, hitting on the point of like you brought in someone who was the CEO of major companies in the past, right? to now take over as an athletic director. One of the things that I've heard and I talk about sometimes is like the athletic director today is that role is almost it is the CEO of athletics
Right.
at that university.
Yes, very much so, and that's how Stanford was looking at it, and really more and more institutions are looking at it that way. There's this general manager role that you see sometimes at universities that are specific to, say, football or basketball or some other sports within the organization. But that athletic director is very much seen as the CEO. Some, like the University of South Florida, have actually changed the title to be the CEO of athletics, and never before sort of done or seen at that university. And so, I think you hit it right on the head, Wayne, in terms of how that position's changed and the sort of qualifications and competencies that are going to make someone effective in that role are evolving in that direction.
Well, and it's also just there's actually a C level of executives. There's sort of a C suite that's
Right.
coming, right?
Yes, no question about it. And and it's true at the professional level as well. I mean, the businesses there are just becoming much more complex. Professional teams are now, multi-asset businesses that may have a real estate business, may have a technology business that underlies the operation of their sports team. Certainly, as you know from many of the diverse companies in your portfolio there at 76 Capital, analytics businesses, things that are supporting sports. These teams are investing in and owning in conjunction with the sports team itself. So, the natural outcome of that is an evolution in the executive leadership teams that are part of those organizations.
So when you look at a candidate, what are some of the traits that you look for in a candidate? Are there certain things that you're saying, I need these couple things to really be able to bring this person to the next level of the conversation?
I mean, it's certainly very much dependent on the situation and what the search is. I mean, I think as I've alluded to in professional sports, whereas someone's pedigree previously had been, very much a sports pathway. They may have moved from, a ticketing role, in sales, and then into a revenue generating role, chief revenue officer before they moved up to become, president of a sports organization. Now you are that sports pedigree is not going to go away. I think what's going to happen is that it's going to be one set of experiences, skill sets, and competencies that are going to be put together with others within these organizations to sort of have a balanced and complementary executive team, as that is equipped to kind of meet the challenges of these evolving complex organizations.
Are you starting to see at Elevate Talent people reaching out to you for opportunities that may not have reached out to you in the past?
Definitely, there's no question. So I just pretty recently joined Elevate. I joined about 6 months ago, and I came from a firm that was focused very much in the private equity space. And so my work prior to Elevate, touched on sports entertainment, but it also crossed into other industry sectors from healthcare, technology, business services, industrials, kind of touched across all of those industry sectors. So I established and built a ton of, professional relationships with executive talent across those different industries. And it's remarkable how now that I've moved, my phone is ringing off the hook nonstop because it's such an attractive, fun industry, the sports entertainment space. People are looking to, find avenues to get in, where they can. And, clearly, it just depends on the unique situation of every search. But with the really dramatic increase of private capital investment across the whole sports entertainment ecosystem, that evolution, I think, that we talked about a bit earlier is growing and tapping into folks that have worked in other sectors of private equity owned businesses, that understand the playbook, understand operating in, kind of a leveraged environment as happens with private equity capital, behind a business. So there's no question it's kind of a push and pull, situation at the moment.